When you close your eyes and think, and your life story unfolds, unrolls before you, what fills your heart with deepest joy and your eyes with the brightest light are the choices you made, your yeas and your noes. But then life is a mystery, and we play along, not knowing whether to hold or let go. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Written in 1915 and first published in 1916, The Road Not Taken appeared in Mountain Interval. This poem is dedicated to Edward Thomas, his friend, and an English-Welsh poet. Actually, this poem comes out of a story. Edward Thomas and Frost were taking a walk one fine day. They spoke to each other, discussing different issues, and as they spoke, they entered a wood. A wood is a kind of a forest. They entered this place. They came to a fork in the road and stopped there. They were not sure where to go. They debated, discussed on which path to take. In fact, after this meeting and this being together, Robert Frost had a lecture at one of the colleges. And there he went and spoke about this incident, which later he related to Edward Thomas in one letter where he said, I spoke to the children about this choice, this difficult choice that we had to make. And do you believe it? None of them were able to take what I was saying. They didn't believe me. They thought I was joking. And this poem comes out of that incident. Frost himself had spoken of this poem, saying, it's a very tricky poem. Beware of it. And he has himself spoken of jokingly saying things which matter. And I suppose he meant to say, beware of my jokes than of when I'm serious. This poem is a poem that speaks about or is characteristic of Frost. It's a typical Frostian poem where you have, as the Frostian dictum goes, beginning in delight and ending in wisdom. But here I feel you can read wisdom right from the beginning. The poem takes the shape of an extended metaphor. From the beginning of the poem till the very end, you can read the poem at two different levels. For us, the poem begins in medias res, right in the middle of a crisis, at the moment of conflict, the way many plays do. And as Frank Lentricia, a critic, says, it is the best of all American poetry, an example of a wolf in sheep's clothing. So see how scathing, or rather how loudly the poem proclaims about something that is very, very intrinsic of life, something that speaks of life, something that spells out your philosophy, the truth about life. The poem catches the poet and his friend at a moment of crisis in a wood. The time is probably autumn, because he describes a yellow wood. Autumn, and the trees of New England would most probably be birches or alders, which turn yellow during autumn. So again, the winter is about to come. Autumn is at its height. And we see this poet stuck in the middle of this wood, debating on whether he should take the path on the left or the path on the right. This fork in the road will dictate the rest of his life. The choice he makes at this point of time will tell him later on, many years later, whether he had been right or he had been wrong. So we move to the poem and see what exactly happened on that fine autumn day in the yellow wood where Robert Frost and Edward Thomas got stuck at a fork in the road. A fork, by the way, is a two-way division of a road. A two-way division where there is a left and a right, and you stand there thinking of which way to take. We begin the poem, and for you, the poem will be pasted in the description box. The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So we have our poet. Now, Frost takes the role of a narrator, or takes the role of the traveler, not the narrator, of course, the traveler and the narrator in first person speak to us directly about this experience, this shaping experience of life. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. When you see a fork in the road, when you do not know which way to take, you wish you could take both the ways, because you don't know where either would lead you to. So he wished he could be one traveler and travel on both the roads. He stood there. He stood long and looked down, one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. He stands there. Just imagine a fork in the road diverging, and the poet standing there, the traveler, let's call him the traveler, standing there looking at one road, far along the road, where you could see the road leading to one point and then disappearing. And all the way, the eye travels on the undergrowth, along the undergrowth that covers the road. The undergrowth are the plants, the shrubs, the little trees, that line and that cover the road. And he looks far ahead, far along the road. Should I travel? Should I go that way? Or the eye comes back and goes to the other road on the right and debates. Should I take this road? Is this better than the other? So he looks at the other road, then took the other. We come to the second stanza. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. So he looks at the other road. It is just as beautiful, and it is even more beautiful because here he says, having perhaps the better claim. The second road, or the road on the right probably, has a better claim to the road on the left because it is more grassy. It has more of grass, and the grass has wanted wear, meaning the grass is still fresh. It has not been trampled or stepped upon by travelers. It is still fresh. And so it was more inviting, more welcoming. I think I should take this road. Not many people have traveled on this. The grass is still fresh, which means this must be something stranger but more exciting. So should I take this road? Thus debates the mind of the poet. The passing there had warned them really about the same. So he says, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. But maybe at some point or the other, both the roads have been travelled upon, had warned them really about the same. Maybe at some point they both have been equally travelled upon or travelled by. People have travelled along both the roads, though the second road looks better or fresher than the first. And both that morning, third stanza, and both that morning equally lay. In leaves no step had trodden black. So both the roads that morning lay equally open and inviting in front of the poet. In leaves no step had trodden black. This is why we say it is autumn. There are plenty of leaves on the ground, and he says none of the leaves have been trodden black, stepped upon and destroyed, crushed by the feet, and therefore walked repeatedly upon and become black. So there is no leaf that has been repeatedly trampled, that is the word, trampled upon, repeatedly trampled upon or walked upon and become black. So no leaf has become black or turned black or trodden black. Trodden is walked upon. Oh, I kept the first for another day. The decision is made. He said, well, I'll keep the first. I'll put aside this thought. I'll put aside the first and go by the other, along the other. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Standing there, the poet looks at both the roads. Both the roads have leaves on them. None of the leaves have been trodden black, which means not too many people have walked along the road. Yet one is more travelled by and the other is less travelled by, because the other has a fresher growth of grass. So both the roads lay open and inviting in front of the poet, And the poet says, well, I'm going to reserve the first road for later. I'll choose the second, go along that road, and at some point of time, I'll come back and maybe take this road. Yet at the same time, his mind cautions him, well, one road leads to another. One way leads to another way, and I doubt if you will ever come back. I doubted if I should ever come back. Stanza 4. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. So he imagines years later, sighing and thinking, well, there was this time in my life when I came to the standpoint where I was in a moment of crisis. I couldn't decide what to do. I couldn't decide which way to take. When I saw two roads in a fork, at a forking point, two roads, one on the left and one on the right, I chose to take the one on the right and hoped that I would someday come back to the road and take the road on the left and travel on it. At the same time, knowing fully well, somewhere where my subconscious mind told me that no, one way will lead to another way, and I'm not sure whether you will come back. And so, I took the one less traveled by. That was what I did ages ago. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So what you see, the person I am standing and writing, speak before you, writing to you, speaking to you, was because I took the other road, which was less traveled by, where the grass was greener, not trodden by travelers. And that has made all the difference. So this is a poem about choices. As we see, the whole poem is an extended metaphor. Right from the beginning, you can see, you can read the joy in the traveler. The joy of the traveler is offset by the decisions or the choices that people make in the journey of life. So we all travel along roads. We all come to crossroads, and there, the decision that we take on where to go, on which road to travel, which way to take, makes all the difference in our lives. We might look back and regret, no way, it won't save you, it won't alter your decision. So decisions in life are very crucial. Though at the same time, we can't always think and plan before you take your decision of life. Yet, the poet cautions the reader, cautions the listener, cautions the traveler. Make your choices after deciding or planning or at least imagining what the outcome would be. Again, Frost's trickiness comes here to tell you, well, you cannot plan, you cannot decide beforehand, because it all comes from inside. There is this moment that makes you opt for something. And there is the same moment that catches you and tells you, well, utter boy, you've made a choice of a lifetime. You have achieved what no one else around you had ever or has ever hoped to achieve. So with that crown on your head, that cap on your head, that cap of victory, Frost says, your choices can make you or break you. It all depends on that little crown on your head, which dictates the way your life is going to turn out to be. So the road not taken is philosophical. It's philosophical and it tells you about a lot of things that happen in life. It's very personal, and it's being personal, it's communicating to each one of us is what makes this Frostian poem, this characteristic Frostian poem, the most popular poem and the most quoted poem of all times, where you say, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.